It's not just the alignment between Elon Musk and Donald Trump. It's essentially an endorsement of Elon, right, by Trump on stage, the president-elect. But the potential policy platform that Trump brings, you discussed with your last guest, the winners and losers of this outcome. Tesla's strategy as a global company kind of fits the idea that Trump would want to have conditionality around manufacturing in this country. Tesla, for quite a long time, has had this policy where it wants to manufacture in the markets that it sells into. In other words, don't build cars in America and sell them into Europe. Don't build cars in Europe and sell them into America. But I guess one thing we should talk about is what is Elon Musk going to do himself? The assumption of sources that I've spoken to, and it's an assumption, it's not known, is that any role within a Trump administration or federal government role would be advisory. And what I heard from people overnight is that the plan internally in all these companies is that Elon Musk remains at the helm of them, which I think is a really interesting idea.
Well, yeah, Ed, and that's one of the main question marks. How much can he be the beneficiary if he has to sell out his shares or freeze them and then leave? There are a lot of issues here. There's one with SpaceX and how much that could take over some of the space program in the United States as Boeing and NASA take more of a back seat. And then there's a question about the electric vehicle policy. There is a broad feeling that Donald Trump will be terrible for electric vehicle policy, considering some of his prognostications about it. And yet here you see the shares of the biggest electric vehicle maker surging 14% on the heels of this. How much will the policies of Donald Trump and his next administration help just Tesla or the broader market?
Well, for every winner, there is a loser, right? And yes, Tesla is up significantly, but I'd look to the European automakers, how significantly lower they are in that European session, going back to the same logic that if President-elect Trump were to move forward on the idea of tariffs on imported vehicles, the way that company is organized, Tesla, it would set up to be a beneficiary in that market environment. You raise so many interesting points. Space is highly regulated, but SpaceX is the contractor of choice for the US government and its activities as it relates to space. And I think one area that Musk has pushed back on consistently is that Tesla or SpaceX in either context are not that dependent on subsidy. I think we could debate that, right? There's definitely evidence in periods of this year where the federal tax credit, $7,500 on EVs, has helped Tesla lease a lot more vehicles. But again, they would push back as a company and say, we haven't taken handouts. We've done a lot of this ourselves organically. The forecasters, be it Bloomberg NEF, Bloomberg Intelligence, the sell side, whatever, they all do feel that under a Trump presidency and Trump term, there will be some repeal of the Inflation Reduction Act and other EV-related policy. Very hard to call.
Ed, on the campaign trail, the former president said, Elon Musk is one of our geniuses, and we need to protect our geniuses. If he had one ask from the U.S. government, he runs 6 companies, what would it be?
Yeah, proceeding on the basis and the assumption that a role in the Department of Government Efficiency is advisory and that this is not becoming some sort of formal U.S. institution. I think that, looking at clues, Musk would seek for things to move faster. The belief where I am, Silicon Valley, is that the reason President-elect Trump was the right candidate for technology was that he would deregulate, cut red tape. And if you think about the direction Tesla's headed, robo-taxis, autonomous driving, the biggest barrier right now is rules and getting vehicles on public roads. And as we discussed, Anne-Marie, a few weeks ago, and I've written about, Musk talked about that quite explicitly on Tesla's last earnings call. And that might be one ask. Make some rules or cut some rules for the future of autonomous driving.
Ed, you speak to these automakers all the time. Do they face federal hurdles or state-level hurdles?
Both, but remember, the risk can be a tailwind. It works both ways. That take California, for example, or other state-by-state specific manufacturing policy, that's helped some automakers. Rivian, for example, is highly supported by the state of Illinois. But again, it is difficult. I think one complaint that I hear from CEOs, and honestly, if the CEOs of the automakers are watching and you know who you are, speak about it publicly, is they've been very frustrated with the organs of federal government and how little public officials understand about supply chain. So for all of the legislation, be it the CHIPS Act or the Inflation Reduction Act, actually getting money out of the legislation and into the system has been very hard for them, as has been sort of navigating the ability to access raw materials. China is something we haven't really talked about, but we could talk about a bit more, given how critical it is for supply chain and end market as well. The point is those CEOs are frustrated and have been for the last 4 years or so.
We've got months. We've got 4 years to talk about China.
Sure.
Ed, I just want to squeeze this in, just quickly. Where is he going to find time for this? Where will Elon Musk find time to do all this?
Very fair, reasonable question. Simply, he spends a lot of time on his cell phone and on his jet, which is Starlink Wi-Fi enabled. He doesn't sleep very much, by all accounts, and you can see that from his social media presence. I think that he's just one of those people.